when they start branding Traoré as a criminal because he's stealing the gold of his people of Burkina Faso to protect himself, then slowly they're achieving two things: building a narrative that this government is illegitimate, but also, and more sinister, more lethal, what they're also doing is to begin to lay the groundwork of taking action. But also another trick that they're now using in this divide and rule is by using black people. We embrace Michael Langley as a son of Africa. We embrace Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK, as a daughter of Africa. But we are telling them that we must now stop allowing these people to use the black man and the black woman to do their dirty work. For example, in the case of General Michael Langley, he's the leader of the US Africa Command. And as the leader of the US Africa Command, he had a chance to renegotiate America's relationship with Africa militarily, but it is impossible because the American systems cannot allow that. These people like controlling Africa through narratives. And what they do with people like Ibrahim Traoré and previously somebody like Magufuli or even Gaddafi before him, when they say that you're in power illegitimately, when they create a narrative that then shows that you're in power illegitimately, with time, it starts to take hold. Revolution is not just about slogans and rhetoric, but it is literally about making the lives of people better.
Good.
So when these economies become stronger, because they are backed by Burkina Faso's gold, then they'll be in for a rude shock. Burkina Faso is in the process of setting up a national gold reserve. Where there'll be actual gold, not just on paper, but a national gold reserve, and that gold will back their currency.
Do you think African presidents are jealous of Traoré? The support he's getting, the love he's getting, the lessons people are picking from him. Is this a threat? Are they intimidated by this son of Africa? Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of LNS. My name is Lynn Ngugi, and as always we get to meet for another thought-provoking conversation where we get to do the three things we are doing this season. We are learning, unlearning, and relearning. I know you are not stranger to this because we all witnessed it and we have seen it. A few weeks ago, this US general on your screen right now went ahead and accused Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré of using the gold reserves in his country to enrich himself and keep himself in power. The results, thousands of people have taken across the streets in different parts of this world in support of Ibrahim Traoré. Today, we have an amazing person on this show who you've seen in a couple of our episodes before, who will be talking to us about, the in-depth details of all this. Why is everyone after Ibrahim Traoré, and the support that we've witnessed across the world, what does it signify? I'm about to let him introduce himself so that he can walk us through this conversation. But before that, allow me to welcome all our new subscribers on this platform. We appreciate you for subscribing. We've seen the love, we appreciate it, and we hope that we can continue having beautiful conversation so that you don't feel like your time in this network is a waste. And also to say thank you to my incredible team who get to put this work together. I have said you might get to see me in front of this camera, but it takes incredible people to put this work together. And also everyone that takes their time to support our work, I do not take you for granted. And now, of course, without further ado, please allow me to let my guest today introduce himself so that we can get straight into our conversation of the day. DJ, how are you?
I'm doing great.
How are you feeling?
Doing great. I'm feeling awesome.
Yes.
Absolutely awesome.
Nice to see you today.
Yeah,
it's a
same
beautiful
here.
day to be African.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day to be an African daughter in this land and witness the, collective responsibility Africans are playing in our continent right now. The time is ripe, and I know the time is now. But I know we are about to get into a very beautiful conversation.
Absolutely.
But before we do, I know some people have caught you in this platform before, but for the people who are maybe watching you for the very first time, could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Perfect.
Yes.
My name's DJ Bokali. I am an African currently living in Kenya, and I am so excited to be here today. because something amazing is happening in Africa. Just picture the moment before the rain falls, when there has been a long season without the rain. That particular moment when the clouds gather and the farmers are celebrating and the birds in the air are chirping, very knowledgeable that the rains are about to pour out. That's the moment where Africa is. The rains are about to start falling, the rains of revolution, the popular uprising of the African people who are completely tired and fed up, who are saying, Tosha, enough is enough. Africans are tired of the same old neo-colonialism, the same old imperialism. Thomas Sankara Lynn used to say that imperialism is a bad student. You chase away imperialism, it comes back and behaves in exactly the same way. And that's good news for Africans because we know exactly how imperialism behaves. And because we know how imperialism behaves, we are not going to be caught napping. So today, I am looking forward to us getting deeper into how does this moment look like? How does this popular uprising across Africa look like? And what is Ibrahim Traoré's role in all that? Vis-a-vis when you look at the Americans fighting him, when you look at the West fighting him, they're not just fighting him, but they're fighting what he represents. But the people are saying, enough is enough.
Huh? Yeah. I love that you've said they are fighting what Ibrahim Traoré represents. What does Traoré represent in the African context?
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Here's the thing. When you look at the grand arc of history across Africa, you realize that from the 1500s, when the Portuguese first came to the west coast of Africa and began the crazy slavery, and then that metamorphosed into the transatlantic slavery, the trans-Saharan slavery, and then colonialism, and now neo-colonialism, what we're living in. When you look at all that period, you get to see the utter exploitation of the Africans. Now, Ibrahim Traoré represents an African. He embodies that spirit of uprising, that spirit of independence, that spirit of saying that we are now going to chart our own course. We are no longer going to allow anybody to be in the driver's seat and drive this vehicle, this amazing vehicle that is Africa. And because he represents that Lynn, they realize that the one sure way of demoralizing the Africans who are being awakened in this current moment is to actually not only destabilize Burkina Faso and other African countries, but in the case of Burkina Faso, to drastically weaken Ibrahim Traoré and even commit the ultimate sin, of taking him out. They realize that all that would really demoralize Africans because he represents this new Africa. This new Africa that the African people are completely ready for and completely embracing. But here's the thing, Lynn. Victor Hugo was a French writer, a French historian, a French poet and essayist, and he said that no force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. Now, the Westerners seem to forget that although it's Victor Hugo who said it, it is actually true that no force can stop an idea whose time has come. They forget that their own person actually said that they cannot stop Ibrahim Traoré and they cannot stop the Africans today who embody that similar spirit of yearning for a new Africa, which is why in this scenario, you see, they tried to behave in exactly the same way. Remember, I've just told you that imperialism is a bad student that repeats the same mistakes and the same habits over and over again. And one of the habits that imperialism is really keen on doing all the time, one of the things that imperialism does here in Africa is to destabilize African governments. And one of their favorite weapons is coup d'etat. They love coup d'etats. Lynn, there have been at least 214 coup d'etats in Africa since the 50s. Many of these coup d'etats were actually instigated by the imperialists, including the US of A. They were actually instigated and they were totally behind those coup d'etats. Every time they saw an African leader becoming strong or not dancing to their tune, they would instigate a coup d'etat.
Yes.
They would, in the name of training, be very careful every time that America or Britain or France claim that they are training African soldiers on whatever, because embedded in this training are usually ideologies and building connections so that they get to know that they have people that they can always remote control when the right time comes. Because history is littered with instances with African soldiers who went for training, came back to Africa, and then led coup d'etats to remove leaders who were no longer dancing to the tune of the imperialists. So in this scenario, they tried that same thing. About a week or so ago, they actually tried a coup d'etat in Burkina Faso because it's a tool that they keep leaning on. So what they have done in this scenario is to have a situation where the Burkinabe people are already tired. The Burkinabe people are tired not of Ibrahim Traoré, but of the insecurity that is in their country. And today we're going to go a bit deeper to understand that insecurity, how it can be tackled, and how Ibrahim Traoré is actually tackling it. Because people don't often talk about what is a Burkinabe government under Traoré actually doing to tackle this insecurity. So now they're wearing down the Burkinabe people, because when half of your country is extremely insecure, at some point everybody has a breaking point.
Yes.
So they thought that now that the Burkinabe people are really getting tired, they can now instigate a coup. So they tried it, but it was thwarted. And we have two people to thank for the failure of the recent coup. The first one is Thomas Sankara. The second one is, of course, Ibrahim Traoré. Why Thomas Sankara? Because number one, Thomas Sankara is the one whose spirit is coming back. A spirit that believes in a Pan-Africanism, that is working for African people.
Yes.
A spirit that is completely opposed and completely resistant to the kind of neocolonialism that we see today. But also, Ibrahim Traoré, whose role model is Thomas Sankara, has also said that he will also keep learning from Sankara's shortcomings, especially as regards his own security. Because Thomas Sankara was an amazing leader, one of the best ever, not just in Africa, but in the entire world. And he was such a simple guy that he assumed that he can just maintain that simplicity and his enemies will not do anything about it. But tragically, that was part of his undoing when he then allowed Blaise Compaoré, at one time his best friend,
the traitor.
Yeah, the traitor, to team up with France, to team up with USA, and assassinate him like they did, because he was just having a meeting with other soldiers, you know. And then these people came, and Thomas Sankara told them, I know it is me you want, let these people live. They ended up killing all the other soldiers apart from one, who told them that I need to use the restroom. It's a bit funny, but that's what saved his life. So they allowed him to use the restroom, and by the time he came back, they had already left. Now, for me, that was God's doing, so that there is a witness who was able to tell us exactly what happened. But why I'm giving that anecdote is because Ibrahim Traoré has said it with his own mouth that nobody will ever betray him. Nobody will ever take advantage of what they're doing there. He's not going to have that naivety to think that everybody who surrounds him or everybody who claims to be a friend means well for the country and for him. So because he's very vigilant, extremely vigilant, the recent coup d'etat couldn't work. But I guarantee you, if he had not been that vigilant because of what happened to Sankara, the reason coup d'etat would have worked. The previous attempts, coup d'etat attempts, would also have worked. But the vigilance born from what happened to Sankara is one of the things that is keeping him alive.
Good.
Is one of the things that is keeping the revolution in Burkina Faso alive.
Good.
So because of that, Africans have to continue learning from the past, both the strengths but also the weaknesses.
Good.
Yeah.
I love that. And I know you've said we are going to get into the insecurity in Burkina Faso, but let's address this guy, Langley.
Yes.
Stood in front of a hearing, suited up, and declared Ibrahim Traoré a criminal. And in that same statement, he threw in the gold reserves in Burkina Faso. What are we looking at here? What was that statement supposed to achieve, and has it achieved?
Great. Again, we look at that gold because Burkina Faso has amazing deposits of gold. But first of all, let's look at General Michael Langley. On April 3rd, there was the U.S. Armed Services Committee hearing in the U.S. Senate, and General Michael Langley showed up. He showed up to do a presentation that he does every year.
Okay.
This presentation, the purpose of it is to chart out the way forward for the U.S. Africa Command, because the U.S. has several commands, and every year they all must come up with a document that is clearly charting out what are they going to do for that year, what challenges are they facing, what threats are they facing, do they have any weaknesses. So it's a routine hearing that happens every year, and it happens to the U.S. Armed Services Committee. Now, in that particular committee on April 3rd, less than a month ago, what happened is that he then made those claims. Number one, he said that Africa remains extremely important for America's national security. Now, Africans need to understand that the main thing that brings the US and Africa together are their own selfish interests for their national security. That's about it.
Period.
Everything else revolves around that. Even whatever humanitarian support they provide occasionally, it is all meant to just beef up protecting their national security interests. So he explained within that hearing and said that in Burkina Faso, number one, he used the word junta, J-U-N-T-A, that the junta there is using the gold reserves to protect itself.
Yes.
The first thing to unpack there is the semantics of the word junta. You see, when they say junta, they mean that a government that is in force, that is in power illegally, a government that took power by force. So the connotation of that is that it is an invalid government, it is an illegitimate government. So I urge African media houses to never use such words than African themselves, because this is not a junta, If there's any junta that is there, it is actually the US government under Donald Trump and previously under Joe Biden, because they also take power forcefully under the guise of democracy. But Trump himself is on record saying that the elections are not free and fair, you see. So if they call the Burkinabe government that it's a junta, they are doubly a junta than the Burkinabe government, just to be clear about that. The reason I'm belaboring that point is these people like controlling Africa through narratives. And what they do with people like Ibrahim Traoré and previously somebody like Magufuli or even Gaddafi before him is when they say that you're in power illegitimately, when they create a narrative that then shows that you're in power illegitimately, with time, it starts to take hold. These things are very, very powerful. Anybody who is a master, an expert in advertising, will tell you that anything repeated over and over and over becomes the truth. It totally becomes the truth. So we must stop calling the Burkinabe government that the junta, the military junta there. So this guy, he used the word, the military junta is protecting itself using the reserves, the gold reserves. And he specifically mentioned Traoré, Capitan Traoré. Now, that might appear like it's just an anomaly, you know, but the reason I explained that this was a hearing in the US Armed Forces Committee is because it is now on record. And when it is on record in the second arm of the US government, the legislature, it is bordering policy, you know. It is now official that America regards the Ibrahim Traoré as somebody who is enriching himself and protecting his government using the gold reserves.
Yes.
In other words, he's a criminal.
Yes.
So they do that to start preparing the way for themselves. Because remember, during the Iraq War, George Bush had to claim over and over again that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That at the time you're saying it, there were people who were just dismissing him, that let him be, he's just saying. But you see, he was setting the stage for attacking Iraq. And when they finally attacked Iraq, we all know that they didn't find no weapons of mass destruction there. So similarly, when they start branding Traoré as a criminal because he's stealing the gold of his people, of Burkina Faso, to protect himself, then slowly they're achieving two things: building a narrative that this government is illegitimate, but also, and more sinister, more lethal, what they're also doing is to begin to lay the groundwork of taking action. Now, let me remind people that in January 2024, the same General Michael Langley showed up in Chad. And while in Chad, he met the military leaders in Chad, because Chad remains one of the few West African countries that still has a military cooperation with the US of A. So this same general went to Chad in 2024. Remember, 2024 January, Traoré was now being accepted globally as a different kind of a leader.
Yes.
So these people are very painstaking in positioning themselves and the action they take. The reason he was in Chad was to ostensibly agree on a military cooperation. So as we speak, there are special forces of USA in Chad. There are special forces of USA in Côte d'Ivoire as we speak. Côte d'Ivoire is a neighboring country to Burkina Faso. So Africans should learn to join the dots, should learn to look at the facts and understand that, again, we go back to Thomas Sankara. Imperialism being a bad student, imperialism having the habit of repeating its tactics over and over because they have run out of ideas. So when you look at that, you begin to see now imperialism behaving as it has behaved before. Because now we have the US Special Forces in Côte d'Ivoire.
Yes.
We have the US Special Forces in Chad. And they are saying that the government in Burkina Faso is a criminal government because it is using proceeds from the gold to protect itself. So when you begin to join these dots, you begin to realize that this is not about conspiracy theories, neither is it about paranoia, but clearly there's something brewing. There's something happening.
Yes.
The difference with what has been happening in the past is that Africans are awakening. Because 2 days ago, on April 30th, Wednesday, Africans and people across the world responded to General Michael Langley's assertion during that hearing, when there were all those demonstrations in Burkina Faso, in Britain, in Kenya, across the world. There were all those demonstrations in support of Ibrahim Traoré and what he represents. And many of them were saying, hands off Ibrahim Traoré. So that's the difference this time. Previously, all these things would be happening beneath the radar. And then one day you wake up to the headline, coup d'etat in Burkina Faso. Or God forbid, something even worse than that. But now people are awakening. Now, what people have to do is to go further. Because when your enemy is making moves and positioning themselves in a very concrete manner, like they're doing, then we cannot afford to fight special forces in Chad and in Cote d'Ivoire with mere rhetoric. We cannot afford to do that. So I'm not saying that Africans should take up arms and go there, but we have to come up with very, very concrete means that how do we rebut this? How do we fight this? And one of the things is what you are already doing here by even having this session, so that Africans can be increasingly knowledgeable, even in their awakening. Yeah.
God, every time you speak, a girl just has to listen. Every time you're speaking, DJ, it's a moment of learning and relearning for us. And I appreciate you for that. But let's go deeper. Because what we are witnessing with this attempted coup, it's the psychology of it. They know the people of Burkina Faso might get tired of the insecurity. Of course, everyone wants to live in a stable country. You said we would go deeper on the insecurity. Who is sponsoring this in Burkina Faso? And why is it so hard for Traoré to deal with this? Or is it easy for him?
Great question again. And these are the kinds of questions that we have to increasingly ask. You know, the genesis of Burkina Faso's problems goes back to when NATO attacked Libya. And then after NATO attacked Libya and Libya collapsed, the jihadists then poured into the Sahel. And when they poured into the Sahel, what the imperialists, in this scenario, France, NATO itself, and of course the US, what they always do is to then work with the local people who are opposing somebody that they don't like. So that they are puppeteers, you know, they are master puppeteers. People need to understand that imperialism is in love with puppeteering. They are master puppeteers because when you're a puppeteer, you're pulling the strings from behind the scenes. You're not even in front, you're just behind the scenes. So what happened is that they have taken advantage of these jihadists. But they're the same ones who are arming these jihadists. They are the same ones who have taken advantage of historical enmities and natural environment-induced enmities, because that's a very dry region. So sometimes some of these communities used to fight over resources, but now there's that jihadist angle. But behind all that is the enablement of the imperialists in the entire Sahel region. And that was even long before Traoré became president. By the time he joined the army after he finished university, Burkina Faso was already fighting these jihadists. So when you understand that historical context, that the genesis of it was NATO itself attacking Libya, ostensibly to take out Gaddafi, but then opening the region completely to these jihadists. And then for several years, Lynn, they themselves brought boots on the ground. French soldiers came, you know. They were unable, in a very suspicious manner, unable to defeat these jihadists. So here's the thing. If they really were fighting the jihadists genuinely, of course they would have defeated them. They totally would have. But they were just putting on that semblance of fighting the jihadists and then maintaining the instability in the region. Then now when these revolutionary leaders took over, from Assimi Goïta to now Traoré himself, these leaders, of course, kicked out France, kicked out America. Now, they simply retreated back to what they are really good at, fighting from behind the scenes. That is one of the reasons it's very hard to get rid of these jihadists, because they have their sponsors, they have people who are enabling them. And remember, the sad truth is that the US alone, its defense budget is more than all the other 10 countries combined. They spend a lot on new equipment. You know, they are really technologically savvy in terms of whether it is drones, whether it is precision missiles that have to hit their target. sadly, the US, has invested a lot in that. So when you have a situation where they're enabling,
Yes.
In very clandestine ways, enabling these jihadists, then it becomes really difficult. And that then brings me to something that Africans really have to understand. Most of Burkina Faso's budget has to go to purchasing weapons. They are not given free weapons by Russia. Russia, to its credit, does sell to Burkina Faso whatever weapons they want. China, the same thing. Turkey does the same too. For example, Turkey has sold to Burkina Faso a lot of drones, a lot of high-tech drones. But they don't do it for free.
They gotta buy.
Yeah, they have to buy this. People need to understand that these things are not dished out freely. So Burkina Faso is spending most of its budget on purchasing weapons to defend itself. You see? Now, if there are $10 to develop a country and $8 has to go to defend yourself by buying these weapons, it means that you have to use the remaining $2 to build schools, to build roads, to do everything else.
Hospitals, everything.
Yeah, which is impossible. It's completely impossible.
Yes.
But Traoré has to do that because he believes also in self-defense. He realizes that we need good weapons if we're to fight these people. But embedded in all this is something extremely powerful that Africa can learn from, that can actually be one of Africa's salvation. They have something they call the Patriots Fund, the Patriot Support Fund in Burkina Faso. Now, this Patriot Support Fund, people in Burkina Faso contribute money. The government itself tops up, but ordinary people, they contribute money so that the fund from there is also what helps in purchasing these weapons. To give you an idea on how powerful that is, this year, they have raised an equivalent of about 56 million US dollars just the first quarter of this year.
Wow.
That's a lot of money, especially when you consider that last year in 2024, what Kenya earned from exporting coffee was about $26 million. About half, literally half of what people in Burkina Faso have contributed in one quarter.
Wow.
So it's the same 3 months, but the people there contribute money that is twice as much as what Kenya has earned from exporting tea in a similar period in 2024.
Yes.
So much as the government also tops up in that fund, but these are the Burkinabe people taking very concrete steps, saying that I will contribute towards purchase of what we need to protect ourselves. So that is something that Africa can really learn from.
Yes.
Before I come back to the hardcore security, because when you're looking at a country like Tanzania, which has already leased out Dar Port to Adani, the same Adani that Kenyans kicked out, the people of Tanzania could have contributed to become part owners of their own port, and earn from that, because Adani will be earning for the next several decades from that Dar es Salaam port. The government's excuse was that they need an investor. They say FDI, foreign direct investment. They don't have money to do it themselves.
Yes.
But we're learning from Burkina Faso that if people can contribute millions of dollars in 3 months to a Patriot Support Fund, then it means that African countries where there's peace, like Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, should begin allowing their people to contribute towards investing in their own national assets. Because we're in economic warfare with the imperialists. We are completely in economic warfare. Africa continues to be a beggar in the grand scheme of things, globally speaking. So Africans have to learn from the Patriot Support Fund.
Yes.
And we challenge all countries in Africa to set up their own Patriot Support Funds even if they are not in military warfare, they are in economic warfare, so that the people themselves can begin owning their national assets and earning from them. The way the Burkinabe people are the ones who are also funding the weapons that they have to purchase. Now, all that is really complicated, Lynn, because remember, these jihadists, I told you that their backers own some of the best ever military weapons in the world. Because we are talking America, France. I mean, these people manufacture these weapons. So when you're faced with a situation where the Burkinabe government under Ibrahim Traoré has to keep contributing money, has to keep taking money from development, from different areas to fund the weapons that they have to purchase, to fund this warfare, then it becomes very difficult. And unless Africa steps up, the people of Africa must pressurize their governments to step up. Unless Africa steps up, it's not sustainable. In fact, we are now telling Ibrahim Traoré to let other Africans know how they can contribute to the Patriot Support Fund. He may not have the support of other heads of state who are mostly corrupt anyway, but now he knows that he has the support of Africans, ordinary Africans.
Us.
Yeah. So he needs to open up this Patriot Support Fund so that we also can start contributing to that, contributing even to Mali, to Niger. We are at least 1.2 billion people in Africa, at least. And from this, at least half of these people, 600 million, are now conscious of a new Africa. So if these people commit to contributing even $5 every month, then they cannot do anything to Burkina Faso, because now they'll have a lot more better weapons, and that war against the jihadists will take a much shorter time.
Beautiful. All right, so guys, we're about to go for a water break, but before we come back, a few highlights from our previous episode with DJ.
If you've ever wondered, why does Ibrahim Traoré walk around in all that military fatigue, with that heavy vest, with his gloves? It's because he realizes that as somebody who is now threatening the status quo, somebody who is now threatening neocolonialism, many people do not wish him well. And he must be able to, as much as is humanly possible, take some basic precautions, even as he lets God continue protecting him. This business of Africans not holding presidents accountable because they are from their community or for whatever reason must completely stop. And I mention that because now when you're looking at Traoré and when you're comparing their own president, you also deserve to have a president who is transformative, who is a servant leader. A few months ago, he did what many African presidents never do. He bought many tractors, hundreds of tractors, and said that because the economy in the country is horrible, these tractors are going to be fueled by the government, are going to be managed by the government, and they will provide free services for the thousands of farmers in Burkina Faso. How can we have millions displaced in the Sahel region? How can we have millions displaced in Sudan and in Congo? Millions dead over the last 10-15 years in these places and in other conflicts in Africa, and the African Union remains impotent. Thomas Sankara was there, we dealt with him. Patrice Lumumba was there, we dealt with him. People like Magufuli was there, we dealt with him. So they may not eliminate him directly because they realize that that will have grave repercussions that they cannot control. But if they keep Burkina Faso in that state of utter instability, then they are slowly going to start wearing down the patience of the local people there. And it becomes easier when these international media houses are perpetuating that narrative.
So welcome back. What you just watched are a couple of highlights from our previous episode with DJ, and you can catch that episode here on this same channel. The link will be pinned on the comment section below. But you said something very important. Traoré has the people's support. But why are African presidents quiet on this matter? Why is Ruto quiet? Museveni is quiet. South Africa is quiet. Why is none of African presidents saying hands off Traoré?
Great question. Here's the thing with African presidents. Back during the colonial days, the British had what was called indirect rule. This is where they use the local traditional chiefs, local leaders, to actually rule. So it appeared to the people as if our leader is still the one leading us.
Yeah.
But in reality, this leader was now subservient, was now answerable to the British government itself. So they're still doing that. They're still doing that. That is why they ensured that even when Africa gained independence, if you look at all those presidents, and one day we will go through them one by one, starting with Kenya's own Jomo Kenyatta, many of these presidents remained subservient, remained answerable to Britain or to France or to Portugal or to Spain, in the case of the only country that was colonized by Spain. In the sense that when you look at Kenya, for instance, Jomo Kenyatta, instead of rewarding the Mau Mau freedom fighters that inspired even the civil rights movement in the US, he ostracized them. He shunned them. Instead, he embraced the white settlers. He himself became a form of a white settler in terms of the land that he then acquired.
Yes.
So the British knew that the only thing that has changed is that it is a black man who is now ruling Kenya, but in reality, they retained control. And I have always said that what they gave us is just a check, but the main signatory to date remains the imperialists. It was the same story in most of those Francophone countries. And those who opposed, like Sylvanus Olympio, first president of Togo, were then assassinated or taken out. Nkrumah himself, much as he had his weaknesses, but as a father of the original Pan-Africanism, you know, he was only president for a few years, and then they took him out, coup d'etat, before Guinea had to take him in as an adopted citizen. So the reason that is a very critical thing to understand is because it's the direct answer to your question. Even today's presidents here in Africa, 95% of them have continued in that tradition of not really serving their people, but serving their foreign masters to protect their own interests and protect the interests of these foreign masters. So because Traoré represents a scenario where he's saying that now we need transformative servant leaders who are serving the African people. And to explain what he means by that, there are times when people have said, okay, if you're that popular in Burkina Faso, why don't you have elections and now become an elected president?
Yes.
And his answer is always, because he's serving the Burkinabe people, he always says, if half of the country is still under jihadists, and it means that the people who live in this half cannot be able to vote, are you telling me that they're not worthy of voting? How can we have elections when half of our people cannot even cast ballots? According to you, what is more important is an appearance of democracy, and you do not care at all for the half of our country that can't even vote. Because you're saying, and he keeps saying, people need to understand many of the words he says, because sometimes the danger of a revolutionary leader like Traoré is that he becomes a myth and people forget the substance. Yet it is the substance that really drives him. So in this scenario, the substance is, he usually says that when we will finally have elections, we are changing our electoral code so that it will be criminal to ever dish out money to the electorate, as is the norm here in Africa. The only thing that people will sell is their ideas. And they have to go to every community in Burkina Faso and sell their ideas and let people vote for them. And that cannot happen in the current climate. So Africans also, we need to understand that so that we realize it's not just about a blind embrace of the Western style democracy. Look at all these other African countries that have done that.
Democracy.
Yeah. Where has it led us? And this is a good juncture to also tell you about an Afrobarometer survey that came out, I think, just yesterday or the day before yesterday. They did a survey in 30 African countries. And what they discovered, 30 African countries, there are 54 African countries. If you add Western Sahara, there are 55. What they discovered is that Africans have zero trust in the national institutions of governance. The leading entity in which Africans have trust in are religious leaders. That was 66%. The second one is the army. And then, it is those two.
Yes.
And then traditional leaders. 50-something% is traditional leaders. It's just the army and the traditional leaders and the church, religious leaders. But the executive, presidency, the legislature, and the police, all of them, they polled below 50%. Below 50%. So clearly, Africans do not have faith. They do not trust these leaders that keep emerging through the Western-style democracy. Africans are saying that we need to Africanize our own forms of governance. We need African-style democracy. Why is it that countries like Switzerland have rotational presidencies?
Yes.
You know, you're president for 1 year, somebody else is president, and they're doing extremely well. Why is it that Africa was forced to believe as if the ballot box in the Western style of democracy is the only way to get a good leader? Africans, we have to do a massive interrogation of the Western style democracy. We must relook at it and ask ourselves, how can we Africanize this?
Yes.
So that the leaders who emerge through this process are true servant leaders. If they were true servant leaders, they would all be standing with Traoré at the moment. But what gives me hope is this, Lynn. I saw a few weeks ago the former president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete. He was in Burkina Faso, sent by Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan, the president of Tanzania. And it is the first time I have seen a major official delegation from Eastern and Southern Africa actually go to Burkina Faso, because they have been trying to ostracize him all along, that, he took over in a coup d'etat. So Mama Suluhu, that was good. I still have beef with you on many other issues.
But
but
I give her her points
exactly.
for that.
On that particular one, that was very, very good. And I challenge other leaders, whether they're in government or not in government, to begin going to Burkina Faso, not as some sort of pilgrimage, but to just show the solidarity.
Good.
And to begin learning from the ground, so that Africa can start being better in terms of proper governance.
Yes.
So until the day that we have true servant leaders who are serving the people, you won't hear much from the presidents. But the good news also, Lynn, is that since the African people are fed up, since the African people are saying that enough is enough, they are the ones who are going to elect their own Traorés in their own countries. So Tanzania, I expect that Mama Suluhu will win, because Chama cha Mapinduzi remains a very strong party in Tanzania.
Good.
Sadly, the main opposition leader has been charged with treason. So we may end up with a very weak candidate. But even before that happened, Tanzania's opposition, unfortunately, remains more or less like Kenya's mainstream opposition, where these are people who usually want power so that it can be their turn to eat, not because they want to serve the people. So I challenge the people of Tanzania themselves to believe that if the constitution says that so-and-so can run for president, the people of Tanzania should not just count on the mainstream opposition leaders. They also need to come out so that they can grant the Tanzanian electorate a chance to elect a Traoré. Or Mama Suluhu, if she also sees the light and decides to do a U-turn, to become a Traoré herself, I urge Mama Suluhu to continue on that trajectory. Whatever Jakaya Kikwete told her from Burkina Faso, let her listen to that. Let her actually metamorphose, if possible. She can be one of the few leaders who turns from a caterpillar to a butterfly.
Beautiful.
Because nature has that allowance. But time is running out for her. The same thing to Kenya, 2027. If Kenyans must be very serious and realize they cannot elect the same old. It is not fair for Traoré, everybody who loves Traoré and everybody who sings his praises, if you still go ahead and elect the same old, funny, weird leaders. Yeah,
I agree.
Exactly.
Yes, that you're betraying what Traoré stands for.
You're betraying the cause completely.
Yes.
So Kenyans should ask themselves a simple question. Of all these people who are running for president, who at least either represents a bit of Traoré in his own way or in her own way, or has those revolutionary ideals. But Kenyans must then look at track record.
Good.
Because anybody can stand up and say, I'm working for you, I'm serving you.
Yeah.
But they should look at the track record. Number one, any politician who is a billionaire, they should knock them out.
Get out.
Yeah, they should just knock them out.
Even a hustler, get out.
Exactly. They should do that. And that is what true honoring Traoré entails. The same thing to Uganda. You know, a lot of times when I speak a bit positively of Bobi Wine, people like saying that he is a puppet of the West, that Museveni is a true Pan-Africanist. So without getting into Tanzanian politics, Ugandan politics, they have to realize that the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. Traoré himself believes that the European Union ambassador is in Burkina Faso. He has not kicked him out. But he has made it clear that I'm going to engage with all you people as long as you don't dictate anything to us.
Good.
As long as you don't dictate anything to us. So Ugandans should use that measure and ask themselves, what is the track record of Museveni? Is Uganda better off because he's president? Does the man actually need some time out to rest? And those who believe in the ideals of Thomas Sankara, of Ibrahim Traoré, should then ask themselves, who best represents that revolutionary spirit?
Yes.
The same thing applies to all these other countries. At least Senegal appeared to do that, although we are really watching the presidency in Senegal to ensure that they also don't betray the ideals that people have elected them on.
Yeah.
So all African countries must ensure, the African people themselves must ensure that they use their sovereign power that is vested in them to elect transformative presidents, transformative members of parliament, or even county assembly, so that once they do that, then you're going to have a critical mass of people who are also practicing revolutionary ideals that are really, really good for Africa. Because in the absence of that, then you're going to end up with just less than 5 presidents on the continent.
Yes.
And that's not good for the Africa that we want. Yeah.
I love that. Do you think African presidents are jealous of Traoré? The support he's getting, the love he's getting, the lessons people are picking from him. Is this a threat? Are they intimidated by this son of Africa?
They are completely intimidated. But we have news for them. If they're now intimidated, then they haven't seen anything yet. They totally haven't seen anything yet, because now Africans are going to get personally involved. Burkina Faso is going to become the most visited country in Africa within the next 1 year.
Yes.
That's going to happen because that will be a way of building the economy of Burkina Faso. But at the same time, it's going to be a way of that spirit of a new Africa spreading out more and more to the people who visit the country. So they'll now be jealous of the economic situation of Burkina Faso. The other thing that they're going to be jealous of, Burkina Faso and Niger and Mali, in the next year or 2 maximum, they're also going to have their own currency. And why do I say that? Because I have seen some things happening there that are really amazing. The first thing is that Burkina Faso is in the process of setting up a national gold reserve.
Yes.
Where there'll be actual gold, not just on paper, but a national gold reserve. And that gold will back their currency. because we keep saying that we need an Africa currency that is backed by Africa's mineral resources. Now, Burkina Faso is in the process of actualizing that for itself and for the other two countries that are part of the Alliance of Sahel states. Now, here is the power of having a national gold reserve. What it means is that the currency that will emanate from that for these Sahelian states is going to then become one of the most powerful currencies in Africa, if not the most powerful, because it will not be subject to the whims and moods of the dollar.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
The problem currently is that every single African currency is subject to the whims of the dollar because it's like the unofficial global reserve currency. But the Sahelian currency that will emerge once Burkina Faso sets up the national gold reserve and the other two countries, that particular currency, Lynn, is going to be a super strong currency and it will change the ballgame. It will instantly change the rules.
Yes.
Because now Kenya's Ruto will look at that currency and will be shocked because it will be stronger than the Kenya shilling. The South African rand, the president in South Africa will look at that currency and will be shocked at its utter strength. You see?
Yeah.
So this envy that they feel for Ibrahim Traoré, this jealous that they feel, is going to be quadrupled because now there'll be economic dividends. And there'll finally be proof that revolution is not just about slogans and rhetoric, but it is literally about making the lives of people better.
Good.
So when these economies become stronger, because they are backed by Burkina Faso's gold, then they'll be in for a rude shock. Now, about that gold, people need to understand that Burkina Faso has 6.5 million metric tons of gold reserve in the country.
Wow.
They are yet to even, they are only mining a small fraction of that. They have 6.5 million metric tons. In 2023, they only mined 56 tons. To give you an idea of how vast that is. That is the reason Burkina Faso is the 15th leading gold producer in the world, not just Africa, but the world, and amongst the top 6 in Africa. Yet they are only mining a small fraction of that.
Yes.
Niger, we've not even talked about the uranium. They still have vast deposits of uranium over there. So, when Burkina Faso sets up the National Gold Reserve, when Burkina Faso begins to finally localize, because they're in the process of nationalizing a lot of these mines, the industrial mines are 17 industrial mines. They employ about 52,000 people, but about 1.2 million people are employed either directly or indirectly in the artisanal mines. Not the industrial mines, but the artisanal mines. So you see, nearly 1.2, 1.3 million Burkinabe rely directly on the gold in their country. What Traoré is doing is beginning to ensure that they buy out. The world needs to see that also. It's not like they're just seizing these industrial mines. They are literally buying them out from the original owners so that they see once they are nationalized, then more profits are coming back to the people of Burkina Faso. And they're also taking steps to ensure that the artisanal mines that employ the most people will also have a model where they're like cooperative owned by the Burkinabe people themselves. You see? And that will ensure that they will increasingly mine these 6.5 million tons, which will further beef up their national gold reserve. And when that happens and they set up that currency and it becomes more and more strong, and when Africans contribute to this Patriot Support Fund, so that this war can end like yesterday, Burkina Faso has said that this is home for every African.
I love that.
Yeah.
Some solutions, beautiful ones
Exactly.
right there.
Yeah.
But before I let you go, allow me to touch on the black man effect. Langley, a black man, against Traoré, a black man. What I noticed is during the hearing, the senator was acting as if he's not informed.
Yeah.
And there was need for him to hear this information from this black man, Langley.
Yeah.
Was that supposed to play? Is that by design?
Yeah.
That maybe if Langley speaks, we the black people would also give him, just a bit of confidence that this black man might know what he's doing. Was that by design to discredit Traoré?
Absolutely. There are two things there. The first one was beautifully and poetically articulated by Malcolm X when he talked of the house nigger and the field nigger. Beautifully articulated. And then the second one, and I'm going to go a bit deep on that. The second one is the divide and rule concept. That they like to divide and rule through Africa's own corrupt ruling elite. But also another trick that they're now using in this divide and rule is by using black people, because we embrace Michael Langley as a son of Africa. We embrace Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK, as a daughter of Africa. But we are telling them that we must now stop allowing these people to use the black man and the black woman to do their dirty work. We must completely stop that. If, for example, in the case of General Michael Langley, he is the leader of the US Africa Command. And as the leader of the US Africa Command, he had a chance to renegotiate America's relationship with Africa militarily, but it is impossible because the American systems cannot allow that. They just can't allow that. So I now challenge black Americans, African Americans, to stop doing the dirty work for America. I challenge black people in Britain and in Europe. They need to stop doing the dirty work for the system, for the imperialist system, because it's a tactic that they keep using. If it's about doing dirty work here, then get a black face to do it. Because they imagine that if it's a black face doing it, number one, they're quietly, continuously sowing that discord. You've seen some of these problems that Africans and African Americans are having. Some of these things are rooted in scenarios like this, because it's in their best interest for African Americans and Africans not to unite. Because the day that the African diaspora globally unites, which is almost 2 billion people, and is working in sync, even if we have different worldviews, but essentially working in sync, when that day comes, Lynn, then we pretty much, they have no chance. Imperialism will have no chance at all. But that can only happen if we understand their tricks of using black faces to do their dirty work and using the corrupt ruling elite in Africa, I call them CRE, to do their dirty work right here in Africa. So that particular bit must continue being addressed consciously by African people themselves and calling them out.
Good.
Like now we are directly speaking to General Michael Langley, and we are telling him to stop doing the dirty work of the imperialist system in America. We are telling him that he's a very brilliant fellow to use that amazing military experience to imagine how amazing it would be if he one day just showed up in Burkina Faso and said, now I'm coming as a son of Africa to help you to fight these people in my own capacity. That time has come. There was a time African Americans wanted to volunteer by their hundreds to go and fight in Ethiopia against the Italians. They were denied visas. They were not allowed to leave by the American government, but a few did leave. But at that time, when Ethiopia was fighting Italy, there was incredible solidarity. When the African Americans were saying, we must come and help our brothers in Ethiopia to fight the Italians, to fight the fascists. So we're now challenging them. African Americans, ordinary African Americans, need to contribute to the Patriot Support Fund. So again, we're insisting that Ibrahim Traoré needs to open up this Patriot Support Fund. We will need to find exactly how people can contribute to that. And when it is clear, African Americans must be on the forefront of contributing there. because he has already told them, you people are welcome to come home.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's address one or two critics before we wind up.
Yes.
I saw a post on X and someone had said, we people who are outside Burkina Faso, we are infatuated. We are romanticizing our relationship with Traoré. How come the people in Burkina Faso are not on X praising Traoré? How come we are the only people who are seen, praising this son of Africa? And I was so happy when I saw the photos yesterday when Traoré posted, and I saw how the people in Burkina Faso came out in huge numbers to support their leader. For me, that was a statement, and it was important for these critics to see, so that they must stop telling us that, you know what, Traoré is not who we think he is.
Yes.
I think Traoré is who he thinks he is, you know.
Yes.
I think he is who he thinks he is.
Yes.
But when we see also Africans on X trying to discredit the support and the love towards Traoré, what does that say?
Here's the thing, Lynn. For every African leader who's been transformative, who's risen like that, there are always detractors. Sadly, a lot of times it's fellow Africans who sometimes lead the charge of being detractors, partly out of jealous, but also because they are also embedded in that globalism, that psyche that says that Africans cannot come together to birth a new Africa. And the thing about such sentiments, number one, if we're deconstructing them, like we're about to do, the Burkinabe people themselves embrace Ibrahim Traoré. If they did not embrace him, there would have been a coup d'etat 2-3 years ago.
Yes.
He would not have survived this
long.
long. So anybody who says that on X should simply go to Burkina Faso. Just catch a flight, go to Burkina Faso. And they'll discover for themselves on the ground that there's a lot of support. I myself, in my travels, both within Kenya and outside, I meet people out there on the ground who are not even on X. The other day I met a 60-year-old mother who was saying that our leaders need to be like Traoré. She got his name wrong. She was saying Traoré.
But she knows who she's speaking about.
She knows who Traoré is, you know. Exactly. She's not on X, doesn't even know about X. But she knows that there's a young guy somewhere here in Africa who is awakening the continent, awakening the Burkinabe. And actually, I'm glad you brought up that, because during the demonstrations in Ouagadougou 2 days ago, during those demonstrations in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, there was this young man who was carrying a placard that for me contains the answer on what Africa should now do to build on what is happening in Burkina Faso. This placard, Lynn, was saying, Aujourd'hui, AES. Demain, États-Unis d'Afrique. Which means today, AES, the Alliance of Sahel States. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa. États-Unis d'Afrique. Now, that might appear like more romanticizing of things. But by the time this young guy wrote those things and put it up like that, the name Traoré is not even on that placard at all. But this guy understands, as do many Burkinabe and many African like yourself and me and millions more, that what is happening with the Alliance of Sahel States, them coming together, now they have a joint passport. Now they have a military cooperation. Soon they'll be having their own currency, backed by their resources. All that stuff should spread outwards. That's the message on this placard. It must spread outward by African people themselves beginning to unite. We are not saying that Kenya will cease to exist, Nigeria will cease to exist. We understand the impracticality of some of those things. But what we are saying is that the same way the Sahelian states are uniting and truly standing out for each other and supporting each other, yet maintaining their national identities, you don't have to choose this or this. we can have a more united Africa, even as countries insist on maintaining their national identities. So what we are saying is that everything that is happening in these Sahelian states, including the military cooperation, must begin to spread out, including that currency that they are now going to have, must begin to spread out.
Good.
How does that happen? It happens by Africans themselves demanding it. For example, there's a growing clamor in Kenya, a growing clamor in Tanzania, a growing clamor in a couple of other West African countries, that we must have a referendum. The next time any country has an election, there must also be a referendum, so that they are saving on cost on a number of these Pan-African issues. Because the African people now want to speak, to voice their own, to speak out on these matters. And one of the things that must be on the referendum is a matter of the African currency. It could be that African people are ready for an African currency, but the leaders don't want that.
Yes.
Because an African currency is actually going to drastically reduce corruption. The only reason somebody can order for a lot of money from central banks, these presidents, usually they make phone calls. Hello, Mr. Central Bank Governor,
yes,
I need 1 billion in X denominations. The money is willed to status or wherever the president is. Now, that will not be possible if we have a common currency, because now it is subject to different jurisdictions and different rules.
Yes.
You see? So Africans must speak out on these matters through elections. At the moment, we're not doing that. And we have never ever had a referendum cutting across borders on a number of these critical Pan-African issues.
Yeah.
But people are saying that the next time we vote, we also demand to vote on several Pan-African issues.
Beautiful.
Because when that happens, then what is happening in Burkina Faso is going to truly spread out even legislatively. So the direct answer to anybody who is saying that people are romanticizing Ibrahim Traoré is that you're the one who is living in your own bubble and living in your own world. Just go to Burkina Faso and you'll see the groundswell of support.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So as we wind up, I don't want to do that until you tell me, Lynn, it's time for us to wind up.
Okay.
Do you have anything that you feel we cannot exit this conversation without addressing? Feel free.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Actually, in terms of solution, that is linked to Ibrahim Traoré, one of the things that now has to really come out is Traoré became president when he was 34. Thomas Sankara became president when he was 33. For too long, the youth of Africa have left it to the older folks to rule the continent, to be presidents and ministers and all that. The youth of Africa have sat back and felt that my time will come. And one of the things that solidified that was this business of you're the leaders of tomorrow. But one of the things that the youth of Africa really have to learn from Traoré is that he was and still is a youth. He's a young person, yet is shaking the continent, yet is shaking the globe. So we really must increasingly call on the youth of Africa to take up leadership positions, to run for office, and then support each other.
Yes.
They must increasingly do that. They do not have the luxury anymore of just sitting back and letting be. They don't have the luxury of complaining about bad leadership, but not throwing their hat in the ring, or saying that elections are already rigged. They don't have that luxury. And I think the Kenyan youth have led the way. When they came out, and in very large numbers last year in June, and historically showed that when the people unite, in this case, when the youth united, for the first time in Kenya's history, cabinet secretary was sacked en masse. Yes, I know some came back. Yes, I know the corruption may be even worse. But the point is, they proved that they can actually change a country, change a continent. The same way Traoré is proving that the youth can actually provide inspiration that changes a continent.
Yes.
So we must make it very clear to Africa's young people, because Africa is the most youthful continent anyway, that they can change Africa, and they must change Africa because they have the numbers. How do you do that? Number one, you put your name out there to be considered in the elections.
Yeah.
You go out there and you start campaigning. So any African countries where the youth are not politically conscious has a lot of reckoning to do. And on top of civic education, now we also need political education, where we're telling young people that you yourself, you can become president, that you yourself, you can become the member of parliament.
Yes.
You yourself, you can become the member of the county assembly. Because when you're out there looking for votes, it forces you to really put a lot of things in order, because you must live what you preach. So one of the ways to now honor Traoré beyond, celebrating him online,
Yes.
is by the youth themselves starting to become leaders.
Good.
And then ensuring that when the youth emerge as leaders, they get the support of other youth. The other way is that these youth must be the ones electing the Traorés of these other different countries. We cannot afford a situation where somebody in Tanzania, somebody in Ghana, somebody in Nigeria is really praising Traoré, then the next minute you're voting for Bola Tinubu.
Yes.
No offense to him. But if the youth in Nigeria truly embodied that revolutionary spirit, then they will really look around. And if they find that nobody seems worthy of my vote, then at least you yourself must be worthy of your own vote.
Yes.
So put your name out there. Yeah.
Good. We are good. I love that. Part of this conversation also offers solutions.
Exactly.
And I feel the challenge, even as a Kenyan youth, to go out, we must put ourselves on the forefront and demand for better. And also, I love what you just said. If we are praising and we are being inspired by Traoré to go and cast a vote for some leaders, politicians in this country or even outside Kenya, will be a betrayal of what he stands for.
Exactly.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
It's always amazing catching up with you. I feel like you have played a role in widening or broadening my mind into what matters and into what we must stand for. And guys, I was just challenging DJ to just be active in his own YouTube channel because I feel like you have so much that Africans could benefit from. You are so blessed with so many details that we could pick a thing or two. So that's my challenge for you. I would love to also see you grow in other different places so that we can come there and we can learn a thing or two about our continent. What would you want any person watching this to take home from this conversation? What's that one thing they must take home from this conversation?
There's something that I'd really like to stress, and I had said when we started earlier. Back in the 1500s, back in the 1600s, we had the Mogadishu Sultanate and the Ajuran Sultanate in the Horn of Africa, and they had their own currency called Ajuran currency. At that time, Europe was in the medieval period. They still thought that there were a lot of dark powers, that the sun revolved around the earth, even though Africans already knew how the universe operated at the time. But the point is that if right in Africa, in the Horn of Africa, and across Africa, we had our own currencies, and America was not even born, America was not even in the picture. If Africa already had its own currency, then the one takeaway from this is not even the name Ibrahim Traoré, but what he represents. And what does he represent? He represents a reborn Africa. He represents a new Africa where the leaders are truly serving the people and where the people are wielding their power, not just by electing transformative leaders, but being involved in birthing this new continent. That's what he represents. And that is why him, a mere Capitan, to date is still Capitan Traoré, not even a general, That is why he told himself, I will do something about it. And that's how he became president. So the one takeaway must be, you yourself as an African, a time has come where you must now play your role to birth this new Africa. Beyond speaking, either run for office or support those transformative leaders who are running for office. If you have the means, visit Burkina Faso. I challenge the tourism companies in Africa, instead of just organizing trips to Dubai, no offense to Dubai, begin to organize trips to Ouagadougou. You'll actually make a lot of money, and you must pay Lynn some royalty.
And that's a business tip.
Yeah.
That's a business tip right there for you guys.
Exactly.
Msiseme hakuna kazi. That's a business tip for you
Organize
guys.
that.
Yeah.
Ibrahim Traoré remains completely ready to welcome Africans to Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
So begin to visit Burkina Faso. While you're there, go to Niger, go to Mali. If you don't have money, I challenge the philanthropists and all other people. Let's have a system where now Africans are visiting, not just Burkina Faso, but Africa. Because 99% of Africans live and die
without
having ever stepping outside
their own country.
Many of them live outside their own localities. Leave alone even the country, you know, their own localities. They never step out of there. So now we need Africans themselves. We need to make it easier for Africans to visit Africa. We need to make it easier for Africans to start having jobs that enable them to do that. We need to start supporting each other. I challenge people with means to say, I will help only one African to also visit another country. Because the more we do that, the takeaway is that we start doing what Ibrahim Traoré did. We start saying that I myself will do something concrete to birth a new Africa. Me as DJ Bwakali, one of the things I'm investing my time now in, beyond what you and I do to educate and empower people, is that African currency, because I strongly believe that Africa will be much better off when we have a currency that is for the whole of Africa.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Lovely. A beautiful takeaway for all of us. Me, I was just telling DJ off camera how I'm excited to go to Burkina Faso. Guys, I'm going there and I will document it for you. And I feel I just feel like there is something in me that really loves that place. And I don't think I want to leave this world without having visited Burkina Faso.
Actually, there's when you've mentioned going to Burkina Faso, I remembered Thomas Sankara. Actually, Africa needs a Thomas Sankara holiday. Like just
thank you.
Either the day he was born, where all of us in Africa, we need to petition that we all celebrate that birthday. The same way Martin Luther King is celebrated in the US with a holiday. You know, he's the one who penned the Burkina Faso national anthem. He's the one who came up with the lyrics, and some say even the tune itself. And there's a line there that I remembered when you talked of going there. He said, homeland or death, we will triumph. Homeland or death, we will triumph. That utter commitment on winning is embedded in that particular national anthem. That homeland or death, we will triumph. So Africans must have that same spirit, that homeland or death, we will triumph. And then we define, what does triumph look like? Triumph in a nutshell is where neocolonialism is no longer in Africa, where sovereignty, real sovereignty, is now reigning supreme in Africa. So when you land in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, just remember that you'll be in the land of the upright people who have said, just like you're saying, that homeland or death, we will triumph. I don't even need to extend this. Homeland or death, we will triumph. But thank you so much, DJ. You're welcome.
Where can people find you? How can they be able to connect with you? Feel free.
Okay. First of all, again, I'm challenging Lynn, that German machine.
Oh boy!
That she's very proud of.
I'm happy you guys don't even. I thought we moved on.
Actually, personally, I've said, I have said that by 2030, which is 6 years from now, inshallah, if God has kept us, if there'll still be no car made in sub-Saharan Africa, I'll just drop my Japanese car completely. Okay. Start using my feet.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, on an equally serious note, you can all find me on at DJ Bokali. Lynn has challenged me to work on the YouTube.
Thank you.
I will definitely do that under her help. Yes. Thank you for that.
Yes, Karibu.
Yeah, and as I always say, I'm very happy about the many of you who have bought my book, because of when I speak about it here, about 100 or so people. We need that to reach 1,000, because my book, which you can see on the screen, is a book that will really show you about African history and how it applies to us today through the eyes and through the whispers of transformative or just historic African leaders. So you can see the details on the screen. Go grab your copy. And those of you who are writers, keep writing about Africa. If you're not a writer or a musician, sing about Africa.
Good.
Let's use our respective spaces to really promote Africa, because when we do that, then we are practically ensuring that that new Africa is happening.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, DJ. Hanging out with you is always beautiful. As I said, I always feel like I'm catching up with my big brother. Thank you for always receiving my calls. I was telling DJ, when I saw Michael Langley speak, guys, I wanted to come and react on it. But you know, for me, I stay away from reacting on something and giving you surface level details. So I'm happy you could make time to be able to talk to us about this. And I know we've learned a thing or two. Homeland or death, we will try. All right, so guys, thank you so much. I want to end this conversation by reading you a beautiful, beautiful message from Ibrahim Traoré in regards to the support that you guys have accorded him. And he posted this on X yesterday, and he said, I would like to express my gratitude to all the peace-loving, freedom-loving patriots and Pan-Africanists who rallied around the world on Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, to support our commitment and our vision for a new Burkina Faso and a new Africa, free from imperialism and neo-colonialism. Just what DJ has said. Your active solidarity and this demonstration of sympathy strengthens our conviction that the fight we are waging for a fairer and more equitable world is justified. We will never bend our backs in the face of adversity. We will stand firm until our people are truly emancipated. With you, we are certain that victory over the forces of evil is at hand. Together, in solidarity, we will defeat imperialism and neocolonialism for a free, dignified, and sovereign Africa. That is Traoré's message to you guys.
Viva!
Viva, who have stood with him, all the people that went outside the street. I saw my friend Lydia Tetolet all the way in London, in the streets, saying, hands of Traoré. But my take home from this conversation, if you are a fan of Traoré, or if you've been inspired by him to stand and vote for evil in whichever country you are watching this conversation from, is a betrayal of the movement. Yeah, allow me to wind up. I know our editor Okabi is like, Lynn, I need this footage right now, so allow me to wind up. But please let me know what your take home has been on the comment section. Very important for us, so that we continue curating conversations based on what what you guys would also love to see on the network. If you want to purchase DJ Bokali's book, it's right there on the screen, and the details are also right there on the screen. And if you want to connect with him on his social media handles, he's very much active on Instagram, and we are looking forward into him being equally active on YouTube. But for now, those are the handles that you can be able to interact with him on. Appreciate you for tuning. If you've just watched this and you've not subscribed, you've done a great disservice to our work. Please subscribe. It's very much free, and it goes a long way into making sure that our content reaches a wide range of audience. Appreciate the team that came through to put this work together. That's not something I take for granted. And of course, you guys for being incredible supporters of our work. Support this network by subscribing, very much free. Join our club, or if you want to support independent journalism, there's an M-Pesa number right there. Feel free if you're in a position to. My name is Lynn. How about I see you guys on Monday or Tuesday at 10 a.m. Bye-bye.
Great.